They were all IDF soldiers who were killed while defending the country on October 7th, 2023, and whose bodies were held in Gaza for more than 2 years. ILTV correspondent India Naftali has more for us on their return.
After more than 2 years of waiting, 3 fallen soldiers, Colonel Asaf Hamami, Captain Omer Maxim Nutra, and Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, were brought home last night. According to Hamas, the bodies were recovered earlier Sunday from a tunnel in Gaza. The group released a photo showing one body bag labeled with the name of a deceased hostage, while the other 2 were left unnamed. The bodies were returned to Israel through the Red Cross and identified by forensic teams. Colonel Asaf Hamami, 40 years old, commanded the Gaza Division's Southern Brigade. He was killed while defending Kibbutz Nirim and is remembered as a brave commander and a loving father of 3. Captain Omer Nutra, who was 21 years old and a lone soldier from New York, led a tank crew in the 7th Armored Brigade. He was killed when his tank was hit by RPG fire near the border. U.S. President Donald Trump personally confirmed that Nutra, an American Israeli, was among the bodies returned and said he spoke with Omer's parents. Trump said, quote, "They're thrilled in one sense, but in another sense, obviously, it's not too great." Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, just 19 years old, served in the same tank crew as Nutra. He died trying to grab a grenade from a Hamas gunman during the attack. Daniel, a passionate guitarist, is remembered by his friends as everyone's best friend, a young man who brought light to every room. The Prime Minister's office said Israel is determined and working tirelessly to bring home the remaining hostages still in Gaza, including the bodies of 8 more fallen hostages.
And joining me now is our correspondent, India Naftali. India, what can you tell us about the 3 hostages whose bodies were returned?
Well, Sivan, thank you for having me. Omer Nutra, just 21 years old, was the grandson of Holocaust survivors. He came here in Israel to enlist in the IDF. He took a gap year, a pause from his university to be here, and he was in one of the tank squadrons. He was in one of the 6 tanks that were near the Gaza border on October 7th. He is the second to last American in hostage that is left in Gaza, and there's one left remaining. His name is Itai Chen. We have the second hostage who was returned yesterday evening, Oz Daniel. He was 19 years old. His family already held a funeral. They buried a bloodied IDF uniform, and now they plan to have a proper burial for him. Now, interestingly enough, the third hostage who was brought back last night is Colonel Asaf Hamami. He was actually the first soldier to declare when Israel went to war. He said, "Guys, we are at war. We are at war," shortly before he was killed. He was the highest ranking IDF officer whose body was kept in Gaza.
Now, can you tell us more about how their bodies were discovered?
So their bodies were recovered from a Hamas terror tunnel. Thereafter, Hamas took photos of the body bags, one of them which had Colonel Hamami's name on it, and the other 2 bags had no names on it, but they also published the ID cards of Colonel Hamami. Now, Hamas did agree not to have any sort of handover ceremonies, and in their own sick way, they decided to publish these photos online as sort of an online ceremony to send a message to Israel that they, not Israel, decide when and how the hostages will return.
And what's next after their return?
So, of course, there will certainly be funerals. There are still 8 fallen hostages in the Gaza Strip now, and as we see every Saturday, Israelis continue to gather in Hostage Square, demanding the release of the rest of them, the last 8. Israeli officials continue to say that this war is not over. Many people are saying the war is ended. That is not true. Israeli officials and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said until every hostage is brought home, this war is not over.
Thank you, India. In a wide-ranging interview with CBS 60 Minutes, U.S. President Donald Trump made headlines by tying his Middle East strategy to Israel's leadership and in particular to Benjamin Netanyahu. In his interview, Trump described Netanyahu as a wartime prime minister, someone he worked very well with, so spoke out forcefully about Netanyahu's ongoing corruption trial.
I don't think they treat him very well. I think it should, we'll be involved in that to help him out a little bit because I think it's very unfair.
But it wasn't just Israeli politics that dominated the conversation. Trump placed himself at the center of the post-October 7th war effort. He took personal credit for pressing Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire, securing the release of Israeli hostages, and spearheading the campaign against Iranian and Hamas threats. On Saudi Arabia and normalization, Trump reiterated that Israel's future stability depends on Gulf states joining the fold and on Israel aligning with U.S. priorities. He aligns where Israel has rights, but where leadership also flows from Washington's agenda. As Israel moves into post-war planning, the question now is whether Jerusalem and Washington can maintain this balance between Israeli autonomy, Trump's tougher diplomacy, and the push for Gulf Arab integration. And joining me now to discuss the latest events is Shiri Fine-Grossman, CEO at Israel-Africa Relations Institute. Thank you, Shiri, for joining.
Hi, Sivan. Thank you for having me.
So, Shiri, we just heard some of Trump's comments on CBS regarding Saudi Arabia and prospects for the Abraham Accords. But in fact, we're still stuck in phase one of Trump's plan. How do you foresee us moving forward and in the direction of this greater peace plan?
Well, we'll do what we did up till now. We'll deny reality and continue forward and to reach that momentum that Jared Kushner and Netanyahu and other negotiators are really striving for. In the Abraham Accords and ever since we saw the Jared Kushner interview, momentum is key to get this ball rolling. But I think the strategic challenge and dilemma of Israeli current government is very clear. It's either choose the Muslim Brotherhood or choose the Palestinian Authority. With them, the Egyptians, the Emiratis, and the Saudis, that's what they are pushing for, bringing back the Palestinian Authority into Gaza. And it seems like the Israeli government is trying to find kind of something in between, maybe a private contractor or something else to appease or maybe believe that the Palestinian Authority in any way shouldn't go back to ruling Gaza. So this is kind of the really strategic challenge that is in hand that is very, very immense. And I think we shouldn't let this one go. We should be proactive and making headway in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I'm not saying to which direction, but we can't just let it be itself, or else we'll go back to October 7 dynamics.
Now, in your opinion, is Trump overly optimistic about Saudi Arabia joining in and normalizing relations with Israel?
Well, I think, it's a negotiation tactic. Yeah, the Saudis are saying they're not going to do a two-state solution before they come in. Trump is saying, I think they will. It's really up to negotiations and how important is the issue to each side and what they put on the table. The Saudis obviously want to get something from the U.S. The U.S. wants something for Saudis. Everything's transactional. We've seen it all along the way. But, I think the most important as someone, as Israeli and ILTV, is what does Israel want and what is it doing in this respect.
And what are the chances of new nations joining the Abraham Accords in the near future? Or perhaps that'll happen before Saudi Arabia agrees to join?
I think it would be difficult for any other country to join before Saudi Arabia. Not impossible, but I think it'd be problematic. Just to rewind, September 23, we were really on the verge of having Saudi Arabia join the Accords, and one of the main motivations behind the October 7 onslaught was really the normalization that was really imminent and was very, I would say, lean on the Palestinian issue. And I think on that the Arab countries said no more. We need to give something. Does it meet the threshold of this current government? I really don't know. But yeah, it's possible. We have a few countries, if not more than a dozen, that can join, and it's possible. It just seems, what kind of deal we'll be able to strike here.
Now, Israel wants and needs to protect its own security interests and sovereignty, but also, let's admit, it has to align with U.S. leadership as well. So how does it do both, or can it do both?
Yeah, it needs to navigate very carefully in these waters. Right now, I would say Netanyahu government is like its independence. Its dependence on the Trump administration is both a good and a bad thing. Being close to the Trump administration, while most of the world does not have that relationship, is definitely an advantage that brings other countries to be closer to Israel. On the other hand, it makes Israel very dependent on whatever the administration decides to do, and it not always aligns with Israeli interests. And we see that most evidently, most clearly when it comes to Qatar and Turkey, which are both very close allies to this administration, to this White House in particular, to the president. And this creates quite a challenge for our prime minister and the government as a whole. And we know the sentiment throughout Israel towards Turkey and Qatar and their destructive role when it comes to supporting Hamas.
Sherry Feingrossman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sivan.
At ILTV, we're not just reporting the news. We're on a mission. Every story we tell stands for truth, for Zionism, and for Israel. When you subscribe, you're not just buying an app, you're becoming a partner in strengthening Israel's voice around the world. ILTV is factual, direct, and unapologetically pro-Israel. And we need you with us. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to subscribe and stand with Israel, because this isn't just news, it's a mission. Last night, a dramatic story was developing in Israel after igniting a controversial scandal of a leaked video incriminating IDF soldiers. Military advocate General Ifat Tomer Yerushalmi was declared missing by Israeli police. Amid the chaos, the disgraced general was later located alive and unharmed. ILTV's Devo Klein has the full story.
Israeli police spent hours on Tel Aviv's Cliff Beach late last night, searching for the woman whose photo was plastered on every Israeli newspaper that day. Massive teams of search and rescue were deployed to the beach, all to find outgoing military advocate general Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi, after her car was found abandoned with only a letter left behind. Just as the Israeli public began assuming that the general had taken her own life, Israeli police announced that Tomer Yerushalmi was found alive. She was later detained for questioning. A few hours before her disappearance, Tomer Yerushalmi was revealed to be the general who leaked a video that rattled the nation. The video supposedly depicts IDF soldiers of the 100th unit allegedly abusing Palestinian prisoners. The prisoners in question, Nukhba terrorists who, before being taken to Israeli prisons, spent the morning of October 7, 2023 slaughtering, raping, mutilating, and beheading their way through Israeli civilian kibbutzim. And yet, that is not the most damning part of the story. After being analyzed by experts upon its initial release in July 2024, it was determined that the video had been doctored, edited to splice together 2 separate days of footage in order to incriminate the soldiers. Despite piles of evidence suggesting that the video was doctored, the damage had already been done. Tomer Yerushalmi's betrayal, which she says was because of a smear campaign against the IDF's prosecution, had ignited a nationwide catastrophe. Israel's public image had been destroyed, with international bodies quick to condemn Israel for its treatment of Palestinian prisoners, Nukhba terrorists, with the blood of innocents on their hands. Tomer Yerushalmi will be investigated in the coming days, but police were too late in locating the general, who had already managed to dispose of her mobile phone, which is still not found. Her phone likely contained more evidence that could shed more light on this anomalous story. This story is developing.
And joining us now is Hillel Fuld, an Israel advocate and social media influencer. Hi, Hillel.
Hey.
So, Hillel, can you tell us, especially for our viewers abroad who don't quite understand this story, what is the big deal here with this story? What is the scandal?
Sure. So towards the beginning of the war, there was a video that was released to basically every single mainstream media publication, video that allegedly showed IDF soldiers sexually abusing a Nukba terrorists that invaded Israel on 10/7, and we know murdered, raped, and abducted hundreds of people. And apparently they committed sexual abuse. That was his claim. As soon as he claimed that, basically, these soldiers were arrested without any evidence of any kind. This terrorist wasn't even interviewed. And of course, the public in Israel did not accept that and pushed back and demanded evidence, at which point our friend Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi decided to release a video. Of course, we didn't know at the time that she had leaked it, that allegedly showed these soldiers indeed abusing this terrorist. Now, pretty quickly, it was clear that this was a video that took two videos and combined them as if they were one video, which begs the question, what else did they doctor? But then the big question was, how did it get to the press? Who leaked it? She, Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi, denied it the whole time and said that, that whoever did leak it has to be prosecuted, and played the game. Unfortunately, one of her subordinates recently came out with the truth that she indeed leaked it, at which point she admitted it. And she caused irreversible, absolutely irreparable damage to the state of Israel. I'm talking, hundreds of millions of views of this video, where the world now makes a comparison, an equal sign between the monsters of Hamas and our soldiers, our heroes, our warriors in the IDF, where there's, of course, no comparison. But this video, if indeed it was true and there was sexual abuse, would create this equal sign. The world ate it up.
Now, how much harm do you believe this leaked video, specifically this video, really do? Was this a turning point in the war for Israel?
I mean, I can only speak, from my anecdotal evidence, my experience, and I can tell you that on that day when that video was released, my personal X Twitter feed flipped 180. I had, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who were on our side, who understood that the IDF is the most moral army in the world and that we don't kill innocent people, let alone abuse anybody. On that day, it flipped because look, even the IDF sexually abuses people, right? And so it completely shifted as far as I'm concerned. Of course, it's not like the world would have loved us had they not seen this video. There was, of course, the rumor about the hospital and many other rumors and blood libels, and the world turned on us pretty quickly. But this video, as far as I'm concerned, was really a nail in the coffin of Israel's just cause and the world's support of Israel's cause to indeed bring our hostages back and eliminate Hamas. Till that day, as far as I'm concerned, the world still sympathized with Israel's cause, but on that day, everything flipped.
Now, on a personal note, your brother Ari Fold was a victim of terror himself. How does that make you feel about the sympathy that these Nukhba terrorists, or terrorists in general, are getting?
Yeah, I don't know that my personal experience should change anything. These are subhuman, vile monsters. I don't know what else, mothers tell their children there's no monsters in real life. I don't know what to call them other than the word monsters. These are monsters. And, any attempt to create an equal sign between Israel and Hamas is morally bankrupt, beyond belief. On my personal experiences, Ari, my older brother, was indeed murdered by a terrorist, and his murderer, the terrorist that murdered him, was released in the hostage deal, not the last one, the one before. So that's of course terrible. But as we know, this is a very complicated thing. We needed to get our hostages back at all costs, and that's what we did. But I think as far as this case, this story with Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi, I think we're just scratching the surface. And I believe that the reason that her phone so mysteriously disappeared, and the terrorist who is the foundation of the entire case against these soldiers was mysteriously released to Gaza, I think there's something way bigger happening here. And I think if she did indeed try to commit suicide, it's because she knew that on her phone and in her brain, she has too much information that will not just bring down her and her colleagues, but perhaps the entire leadership and, what people like to call the deep state. But now we're already entering, conspiracy theories. All I know is that there's a lot more than meets the eye, and we're going to hear a lot more about this in the next couple of days and weeks.
Hillel Fold, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and also your personal experience, and sorry again for your loss.
Thank you.
Today, schools around Israel are marking 30 years to the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Over the weekend, thousands of Israelis gathered at Rabin Square in Tel Aviv to commemorate the assassination that shocked the nation. Rabin, a Labour Party prime minister, was assassinated on November 4th, 1995 by right-wing extremist Yigal Amir after a peace rally in Tel Aviv. His murder shocked Israelis nationwide, and the event was branded as one of the darkest days in Israeli history. But this year's anniversary carries immense significance and resonates with a lot of Israelis in the wake of Israel's war with Hamas. During his term as prime minister, Rabin was actively engaged in peace talks with then Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, when the hope for coexistence was widely seen in Israeli society as a step toward peace. In the shadow of October 7th, Rabin's ambitions continue to reflect a divide in Israeli society.
I came here tonight, first of all, with my family, my children. For them, this is something that they didn't live through, but I remember Rabin's assassination very, very well. I was 21 years old then, and it was a time when I thought there was a lot of hope for a different future with the Palestinians and with peace in the region. And unfortunately, things turned out very, very differently from that. We see that even today.
Tonight in Israel, over 100 representatives of leading Christian media outlets, opinion leaders, religious figures, and heads of organizations from various countries are expected to attend the Christian Media Summit 2025, a bridge of international communication, faith, and understanding. The event will honor distinguished guests with the Pillar of Jerusalem Award, one of which will be given to the late Charlie Kirk. ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
Israel tonight will host 100 representatives of Christian media in the 2025 Christian Media Summit in Jerusalem. The event will include an awards ceremony honoring some participants for their, quote, exceptional contribution to Israeli public diplomacy worldwide, according to the GPO, which is organizing the 4-day summit alongside the Foreign Ministry and the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The Pillars of Jerusalem Award will be given to prominent media personalities Douglas Murray for his advocacy for Israel, Dr. Jürgen Buehler for his contribution to Aliyah encouragement, Yael Eckstein of the IFCJ, and the late Charlie Kirk for his bravery and his uncompromising support for Israel. The award will be accepted on his behalf by his widow, Erica Kirk. The GPO confirmed that the summit aims to deepen the understanding of Israeli society, confront the phenomenon of anti-Semitism on social networks, and present Israel as an innovative, diverse, and open nation.
Last night, Israel received the bodies of 3 fallen hostages from Gaza. They were all IDF soldiers who were killed while defending the country on October 7th, 2023, and whose bodies were held in Gaza for more than 2 years. ILTV correspondent India Naftali has more for us on their return.
After more than 2 years of waiting, 3 fallen soldiers, Colonel Asaf Hamami, Captain Omer Maxim Nutra, and Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, were brought home last night. According to Hamas, the bodies were recovered earlier Sunday from a tunnel in Gaza. The group released a photo showing one body bag labeled with the name of a deceased hostage, while the other 2 were left unnamed. The bodies were returned to Israel through the Red Cross and identified by forensic teams. Colonel Asaf Hamami, 40 years old, commanded the Gaza Division's Southern Brigade. He was killed while defending Kibbutz Nirim and is remembered as a brave commander and a loving father of 3. Captain Omer Nutra, who was 21 years old and a lone soldier from New York, led a tank crew in the 7th Armored Brigade. He was killed when his tank was hit by RPG fire near the border. U.S. President Donald Trump personally confirmed that Nutra, an American Israeli, was among the bodies returned and said he spoke with Omer's parents. Trump said, quote, "They're thrilled in one sense, but in another sense, obviously, it's not too great." Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, just 19 years old, served in the same tank crew as Nutra. He died trying to grab a grenade from a Hamas gunman during the attack. Daniel, a passionate guitarist, is remembered by his friends as everyone's best friend, a young man who brought light to every room. The Prime Minister's office said Israel is determined and working tirelessly to bring home the remaining hostages still in Gaza, including the bodies of 8 more fallen hostages.
And joining me now is our correspondent, India Naftali. India, what can you tell us about the 3 hostages whose bodies were returned?
Well, Sivan, thank you for having me. Omer Nutra, just 21 years old, was the grandson of Holocaust survivors. He came here in Israel to enlist in the IDF. He took a gap year, a pause from his university to be here, and he was in one of the tank squadrons. He was in one of the 6 tanks that were near the Gaza border on October 7th. He is the second to last American in hostage that is left in Gaza, and there's one left remaining. His name is Itai Chen.